Good.
I think Jerry Hughes is the longest tenured Bill. I'm going to double check that, but I do think that's accurate.
Yes.
A two-parter on him, if I may. Number one's the softball. How cool was it to see him in the clinching game to have a defensive touchdown? Because that's the kind of stuff that, even as I say it, kind of gives me chills, because I think stuff like that happens for a reason. And then maybe I'll let you answer that one and then follow up if I may, please.
No, it was so fitting. A guy who has seen the real highs and a lot of lows throughout his career here in Buffalo. So to see him pick up that football and then dance around the way he did and score, I mean, it was a beautiful sight to see. And, very fitting that it was Jerry to be able to do that. And that's a memory I'm sure that he'll have the rest of his life.
Yeah. And if I may, about Jerry, what impact has he made? I believe he was signed, but before you folks got into place, and then re-signed, I think, by Brandon. What impact does he have on teammates, on the whole operation there, as a leader, as a guy, that kind of thing, if you would, please?
Yeah, Kim, for us, he's really stepped up this season from a leadership standpoint. He's always been a really good player, warranted by, the contract extension that he's received. But with the absence of a Kyle Williams or Lorenzo Alexander, we needed someone to kind of step up and fill that void, and didn't know where it was going to come from. We were hoping that Jerry would be one of those guys that would step up, and he has. He's been terrific throughout the year. He's really helped with some of the young guys, bringing them along and just providing that energy and leadership, both at practice and in games, that we sorely needed in this 2020 season with all the stuff that's going on. So beyond what he does and helping us to make plays, just absolutely terrific in what he's done from a leadership standpoint.
Thank you, Leslie. And Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays.
All right, thank you. Same to you.
Hey, Leslie, it's John. Hope you're doing well.
Yes.
We were able to speak with Ed Oliver late last week, and I asked him, we know he said in the past he does pay attention to the sack numbers, and that's certainly something he wants. And he got one on Saturday, but before that, it may not be exactly where he wanted it. Just what have you seen from him this year and his play overall?
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I was asked about Ed and how he was performing. And although, John, he may not have the statistics to show how disruptive he's been for our defense, he's played really well throughout the season. The splash plays haven't been there, but that's not because he hasn't given the effort. And the effort that we saw on Saturday was the Ed Oliver we've seen throughout the season. He was disruptive again, hard to block one-on-one, and happy that he was able to get that sack. But he's been so close so many times during the course of the year, and those sacks sometimes come in bunches, and we expect to see more of that. But it's not because of a lack of effort or just not maturing as a player. It's just that circumstances have dictated that it hasn't happened the way he would have liked. But he's going to get more of those splash plays as time goes on.
With anyone who's drafted as high as he is, I know we've even mentioned with Tremaine in this boat here, the numbers are what people look at to, from an outside perspective, say that's a good pick, that's not a good pick, they're living up to expectations or not. Do you ever have to have conversations with Ed specifically in this instance, but some of those players who are high draft picks with high expectations to talk them through that when the numbers don't necessarily match the tape?
Yeah, I mean, there are times where you have to have that conversation, not necessarily with Ed, but yeah, with others for sure. Because, all the outside noise can weigh you down, and it can distract you from the fact that you're really doing a good job. For example, this guy wasn't a high draft pick, but we had a guy today who found out that he wasn't selected to the Pro Bowl, who I wanted him to know how valuable he is to our defense and what he's meant to our team in 2020, and not to get caught up in some of those other things that are going on when it comes to Pro Bowl balloting. And the same thing for a high draft pick. And in Ed's case specifically, I mean, he's doing everything we want him to do. And as long as he's practicing the way he practices, prepares the way he prepares, the numbers will come. And he just has to continue to work the way he's working. We are very, very pleased with Ed Oliver's effort and his desire to help the Buffalo Bills win.
Thanks a lot, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Hey, Leslie. Jordan Poyer has been so consistently good this season that I think, and we were joking about this on our pregame show the other day, it's almost like you don't talk about him at all because of the expectation that he set. Do you ever just walk up to him and just be like, thank you for everything you do? Because it goes under the radar sometimes, but it's something I feel, at least from my vantage point, is so key to what you guys do.
I totally agree. I mean, he's one of those guys who's kind of under the radar. I was talking with some TV broadcasters. We were doing a pregame conversation, and they were asking me about some of the key players on our defense. And Jordan is right up there with anybody on our defense. He's a vital part of any success that we have. And both he and Micah, both of those guys are underrated and not talked about a lot, but we would not have the success that we currently have or we've had in the past without Jordan's play. And I have told him, and as a matter of fact, I reached out to him today and just expressed that, how much I appreciate what he brings to our defense, both as a player on the field, but a leader in the locker room and at practice as well. So he's had a terrific season and one that's deserving of accolades, and hopefully people will begin to recognize it on the outside and begin to give him the kudos that he deserves. He's a heck of a safety, one of the premier safeties in our game.
I talked to Brian a little bit about Tyler Croft, who's been kind of a healthy scratch the last couple of weeks. And I want to ask you about Trent. It seems like you guys have, you mentioned bringing in the right kind of people. How has he handled that? Because as a guy that's been in this league for a long time and has had some success, it's got to be difficult to, not be out there.
Oh, no doubt. It's extremely difficult when you, like you said, you've got some skins on the wall. I mean, you've had some success in our league, and but Trent has been terrific throughout this whole process. Went up to him after we clinched on Saturday and just, gave him a big hug and just told him how much I appreciate his attitude and the way he's handled this entire matter. And he knows how the business works. He knows, and snap up a finger, he could very well be up, having to go out and help us to win games. So he's staying on the ready, preparing like he always has, like a pro. But his attitude has been great.
Thanks, Leslie.
Well.
Hi, Leslie. Sal Majorano over in Rochester. Good to see you.
If
I could ask you about Matt Milano, I guess his snap counts weren't quite as high as they were against Pittsburgh because of the score of the game the other day, but he does look like he's rounding into form now. How imperative is it, Leslie, to get him ramped up so he can get back to maybe playing almost every down like he used to?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, Sal, to get him back to playing every down. I mean, we're giving him increments as we go. And the way he played this past Saturday and then previously in the Pittsburgh game, we're getting high hopes about how close he is to being 100%. I don't want to say 100%. I don't know if he'll be 100% for the rest of this season, but so close to being able to go out and play like we were accustomed to seeing Matt play, because he's such a key part of what we do on defense. But he's making great progress, and we're going to give him a little bit more, hopefully in this next ball game, as long as he comes back tomorrow and still feels good. There are no residual effects from that game. We need him on the field as much as possible.
And if I could ask also, how impressed are you with the way the group has played, especially most of the second half of the year, even though Matt has not been in his usual role? It just seems like you guys have kind of moved on and just picked it up, even though he hasn't been there. Could you maybe just express some of the feelings you have about that?
Yeah, I mean, not having Matt, that's a big void. He's such a key part to what we do, because he can do so many things and do them well. But you're right, our guys have adjusted. It took us a little bit to adjust, but we have, and other players have stepped up. AJ Klein did a terrific job in the absence of Matt, really made a lot of plays for us. And that had a big part with our defense really coming together. And now that we're beginning to get Matt back, now we just got to maintain some of the good things that we're doing and just keep improving.
Thanks, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Leslie, John Worrell.
Hey, John.
Hope all's well.
Yes.
Good. Did you get, as you look back, as you reflect back to the draft in 2017, did you guys really know what you were getting in Trey White, given what he's done?
We had an inclination. I mean, we took him, when we took him in the first round, so we had an inclination he was going to be a good player. Did I know in his rookie year, we'd be matching him up on the best receivers in the NFL. I can't say that I knew we'd be doing that. And we ended up doing that as the year went on, and he stepped up, and he's been doing it ever since we've been here. And so I can't say that we knew he turned out to be this good so early in his career. And he has been fabulous in so many ways. And the thing that strikes me about Tre'Davious John is his work ethic. Just the way he works, pre-practice, post-practice, his preparation in the classroom. I mean, it's off the charts, man. And that has a lot to do with how quickly he has come as a corner in our league, which is a tough position to play. And but yeah, to answer your question, I can't say I envision this early him being so good.
And when it comes to his work ethic, we all knew how driven mentally he was. But I mean, to hear him say, you know, I feel the weight of importance in me being the first draft pick in McDermott's era to want to pay him back. Just what do you make of the inner drive that this kid has?
I mean, it's impressive in so many ways, and that's kind of who he is, and I think that's what's allowed him to be as good as he's been in his NFL career. That inner drive, that desire to be the best, and that's why he works so hard at what he does. He's like a sponge out there trying to get information. You know, he's listening even when you think he's not listening. He's standing off to the side. When you're coaching someone else, he's absorbing that information. And those are the kind of guys that become great because they're always trying to learn. Even though they're really good at what they do, they're trying to find another way to make a play. And that's who he is. I mean, he's a driven guy to be the best. And he's a really good teammate as well. I mean, the guys love being around him. And that's another good quality. That's not always the case with really good players. I mean, some guys don't want to be around some of their teammates that are good players. So he's unique in that way also.
Thanks so much. Have a Merry Christmas.
Same to you, John.
Hey, Leslie, Mike Giardi, NFL Network. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Doing good.
A question for you. Obviously, the Patriots offense evolved quite a bit because of Cam and the way they've sort of run the ball and sort of altered to his strengths. But I'm curious now, as they've fallen out of the race and there's some buzz that potentially he could switch quarterbacks and go to Stidham, how you as a defensive coordinator prepare your defense for what I would assume would be an entirely different looking offense with Stidham under center versus what it would be with Cam.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting, Mike, as we get into it a little bit. You know, what we have on tape is watching Cam and watching him operate the offense. And, you know, Stidham has been in there in some mop-up roles at times. So we'll have to kind of project and kind of, you know, see what happens as the week goes on. But I think we have to prepare for Cam at this point until we hear otherwise. And that's how we'll approach it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Coach Frazier. George Radney, Challenger Community News. How you doing today?
Doing good, George. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good for a nice Monday, 40-degree Monday. Can't beat it in December.
That's right.
And the question for you is, how would you compare the difference between your defensive unit of this year compared to last year's unit?
Man, there are so many differences, George, starting with the off-season program, the training camp. I mean, you know, you get new acquisitions, you'd love to be able to work with them in the off season, get a feel for them, they get a feel for you and how you operate, and just so many differences. To compare the 2019 unit to the 2020 unit, just too many variables involved. But what I can say about 2020, as the season has gone on, and we've all become more familiar with one another, you can see the guys really trusting and gelling together as a group. And that's what is really encouraging. I mean, one of the things we tried to emphasize to our players early on, back in August and September, not with so many unknowns, the goal was just to keep improving as the year went on. And the guys listened to that, even though at times, you know, there were some bumps in the road for sure, but just kept emphasizing the goal is to improve, and find some areas that we could pinpoint and say, this is where we got to get better at. This is how we're going to get better. And now let's work towards that. And fortunately, we've got some high character guys that are really good guys, and they bought into that message. And you know, we've seen that steady improvement over time.
Yes, indeed. And last question for you. Ed Oliver, with the quick feet, I just noticed sometimes how quick his feet are. Do you think he could could potentially be a edge rusher down the road in his career? He might have that in his future.
It's funny you say that. He's always talking about put me on the edge. I'll win on those tackles, but he's in the right position. We draft him in the right place. He's a good interior defensive tackle, and he's going to be one of the best in the league before his career is over. He's in the right place, but he does have quick feet and great athletic ability, but we got him in the right spot.
And he has that size, and he's compact enough that he could get off the ball and really wreak some havoc in there. That's why I was noticing that Saturday night. I said, man, this guy could actually move out. But I'm glad he's asking too.
Yeah, you sound like you could be his agent there, George.
I might have to talk to him.
Get him on the edge. Yeah, yeah. No,
But thank you. I appreciate your time.
no problem.
All right, that's all for today, Les. Thank you, man.
All right, you're welcome. Bye-bye. See ya.